Welcome to GOLT TALK, your podcast for technology and innovation in the legal profession. If you're searching for solutions to revolutionize your legal practice, you're in the right place. 10 minutes pure, actionable product insights from CEOs shaping the future of legal technology. And here is your host, Tom Pfennig.
Welcome to GOLT TALK, your podcast for technology and innovation in the legal and compliance space. Pure, actionable insights from leaders shaping the future of the legal profession. I am your host, Tom Pfennig, and today I welcome Dan Hobson. Dan is the head of APAC for Vincent by Clio, a globetrotter. You can find him all over the planet with a base in Indonesia. Welcome, Dan, to the show.
Good morning, Tom. Good to see you again, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for spending some time with us. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your exciting journey, and the relationship between Clio and Vincent.
Sure, absolutely. I think it's always an important place to start, which is the journey to where we got to today. We were just having a conversation recently about how you walk into a conference and there's a field of kind of tools and go-to-market claims of we're doing this, we're doing that. And actually, what clients say to me these days is, how did you get to this place? What have you been doing that leads you to a position of providing the market any value? So happy to start there. So personally, my name's Dan, head of APAC for Vincent by Clio. I'm based in Indonesia. The journey to get to Clio has been an interesting 3-5 years since AI came around. So I've been in legal tech for 15 years. I was originally in publishing, helping law firms get access to data that allowed them to deliver their work through the practice of law. So your traditional access to law reports, weekly law reports, that kind of thing. And that was the innovation of legal tech back in the day. Quick boolean searches and access to data. So to get to the point of Vincent by Clio, we were two separate businesses, right? We were a publishing company turned AI vendor in the practice of law space. Obviously, when AI came along, we had about 1 million clients logging into our platform to do legal research every day. And when AI came along, the first thing that they asked was, speed that up. Why are we using archaic Boolean searches to access data? You've got 1 billion legal documents across 100 different countries. Let us access them with Q&A keyword searches. So we built that. And that was the vLex brand building Vincent AI. We then expanded far beyond that space. Obviously, AI's biggest power is the ability to interrogate huge amounts of data. So starting with research, but why not add in your company's information? Why not add in contracts that you're working on, disputes that you're handling, to use the power of LLMs to build strategies, review contracts, and speed up any efficiencies that we see in the practice of the law space. So we built that out. Our engine on Vincent by Clio has about 1,000 pre-built tasks that lawyers can just click a box, get an answer. It's very powerfully automated, but through that publishing background, very embedded and grounded in real law. Like, we have the largest global database of legal information. So when you're reviewing a contract or disputing a claim, it's not just coming up with its ideas and brainstorming with you, it's looking at the leading authorities, be that case law, legislation, books, journals, articles, etc. So context is everything in this space, right? It's not a large language model wrapper, it's access to data. It is 30 years of collecting everything that's happened in the law, enriching it through editorial value, and then building the large language model around it. So that was practice of law. That was vLex, which built Vincent. And then at the end of last year, we were acquired by Clio. And Clio's a big brand globally, probably doesn't need a huge amount of introduction, but they started off in the practice management space, and they were catering from 1 to 100 users, building out the box practice management solutions where you could bill clients, you could manage your matters, store documents. So they had the context of everything that was going on in the law firm. So if Vincent had access to the public and primary law capability, Clio had access to the law firm's IP, every email they've ever received, every contract they've ever written, and that becomes the context, which is why they acquired a practice of law tool like Vincent to say, right, if I bring these together, I've got access to primary law, I've got access to everything you've ever done. So when I'm interacting with this AI interface, it feels like a tool that was built for me because it understands who I am and what I do. The third part of the puzzle, just to finish it off very quickly, was Clio's acquisition of a product called Sheredo at the beginning of last year. Sheredo is a matter management tool for enterprise and pretty much one of a kind in the space that it's in. Completely configurable to a law firm or in-house team's need, which is how does every legal process work from intake, hitting your practitioner's desks, right through to closing a matter. You can configure it, integrate it with every system that you've got. I manage NetDocs, SharePoint, email, etc. and create how your practitioners experience their matters from beginning to end based on how you do things as a law firm. At the lower end of the market, you've got the traditional Clio practice management plus Vincent, context plus practice of law. And then in our enterprise space, we have the Sheredo product, now rebranded Clio Operate, with Vincent AI to provide, again, that we've got access to everything you've done, and then we've got an AI assistant that can do all of these tasks for you, harnessing that information you've collected over decades. So it's been a really interesting journey to get to where we are now. And I appreciate podcasts like these because, as you can imagine, if you build a product today focused on a very niche part of a workflow for a lawyer, it's quite easy to go to the market and say, we built this for this, it does this, done, right? But our power is that we've been in the space for 3 decades. We've got all of this information. We've built this strategically with over 1 million customers, but we have to take people on that journey rather than just put a banner up at a conference and say, here's what we do. Which is why I love that you're doing that kind of first round of, right, who are you, what do you do? Give us the context before we even know whether to engage with you or not. So hopefully that paints a bit of a picture as to who we are, our last few decades to get here, and why we're now valued at $5 billion, I think was the latest evaluation the other day.
Very good. And we don't read too much about your 5 billion. We read about the 8 billion or 5 billion of some perhaps competitors. We can get there in a moment, but I'd like to stay on the USP, unique selling points, and particularly the use cases to make sure the audience follows along. In terms of the data that you have accumulated, would you also be able to cover civil law countries? Because obviously you're very strong in common law countries, British law, Australia, New Zealand. What about the European Union, for example? Would vLex Vincent by Clio also have data for those jurisdictions? First question.
Yeah, so in that trail of acquisitions was the combining of 3 publishers. One was based in London, catering to common law countries from the Caribbean right through to New Zealand and Tonga, the other side of the world. The other one was a company called Fastcase, which was the leading provider of North American law. So everything from case law, statute, right through to dockets and cases going through the courts in the US is the most powerful collection of US information. And then vLex itself was a Spanish headquartered business. So the leading provider of legal information in Spain. But we also have coverage of Germany, France, Italy, a lot of European countries, as well as EU coverage. So with things like the EU AI Act, for example, we've got practitioners in Hong Kong logging on to Vincent to interrogate a scenario with the lens of the EU legislation. So yeah, absolutely. Depending on where you're based, depends on the information that's valuable to you. But yeah, we have information from all around.
Super. Then on the target group or the ideal client profile question, which is a very important one to cut through the noise, and many people are overwhelmed. For what very use case should I use your solution? Obviously, you're covering several, but let's start a little bit above that granularity. You're not just targeting law firms. This is kind of a starting point, but you also said enterprise solutions. So the ICP for Clio right now is who?
Great question. And obviously, when you've got 2 different products, if they stand alone, you might have a slightly different ICP. When you bring them together, you have, again, a slightly different model. But I think it's very kind of simple to say, if you are a law firm of a significant size that is trying to drive efficiencies in your practice, Vincent by Clio fantastic tool. And if you want to manage your matters and standardize everything that you are doing in that big law firm, Clio Operate, being the previous Sheredo product, is absolutely your space. In terms of in-house teams, we have huge success when organizations have a global spread of either teams around the world or need for one domestic team to have knowledge of many legal environments. So big law, basically any law firm, how you use it would differ. But if you're big law, then this product's good for you. If you're an in-house team, there's quite a lot of tools on the market. If you were just looking to draft a single document, drafting is your one kind of, I'm trying to automate there, you might go and look at specialist tools or something like that. But if you're looking for a global lens of law and supporting your various kind of organizations under one umbrella globally from one centralized point, you're going to need that breadth of case law and legislation from around the world. And if you are a corporate who has lots of different functions, large teams, we work with people like Salesforce and Patronus in Malaysia, etc. They have teams that are doing contract review. They have teams that are doing compliance. They have teams that are doing disputes. They have all of these different teams, right? Because Vincent's built workflows for so many spaces, it is a kind of multi-functioning legal AI platform. It's a great place that pleases lots of lawyers within a big organization. So when I'm speaking to customers, sometimes they're looking for a single point tool, which is, I want the best on the market for drafting in just this one particular way. That's probably not us. But if you're saying, I've got 100 lawyers or 500 lawyers, and they all operate slightly different ways, I need a partner that's going to work out how their kind of umbrella tool can help this part of my practice, this internal department, in its own unique way that makes it feel like it was built for them. We're very good at that. We're very good at sitting with an organization saying, you've got 10 different practice areas or 10 different arms to your internal legal team as a big corporate. We're going to sit with you for a number of months and work out exactly how each of them can have an AI tool that feels like it was built for them. And that's quite hard on scale across lots of different areas. We have the functionality and the kind of team power globally to make that happen. So that's a real USP for us.
That's cool. You had mentioned that the tool has up to 1,000 predefined tasks that can be automated. This kind of caught my attention because many organizations still haven't really mapped out their services, have not defined the processes, have not really built the groundwork foundation to plug in legal tech tools like yours. Would this help accelerate that shift from an unorganized structure to a more focused task and process-based organization?
It does, absolutely, because I find it really interesting. I speak with customers at different levels of maturity in terms of their exposure to AI. If you are dipping your toe in AI services, a great place to start is out the box, tick box automation wherever possible. Build trust, gain confidence in outputs and things like that. So if I'm working with a big in-house team, say, and they haven't used many AI tools before, having 100 tasks out the box that are designed for corporate lawyers, great place to start, because they can use it. They can go, oh, I like the way it does that. I don't like the way it does that, etc. And then what we do is we build layers on top of this that allow people to tweak what they're experiencing to make it right for them. So we have things called Vincent Studio, for example, and that's where you can then start to build your own bespoke workflows. And I think of those 1,000 workflows, those automated click boxes, as building blocks that they can use to build something for themselves. So it might be a contract review and then an email to an internal person. These are all like individual workflows. I call them like blocks that they can then go, right, I like that one, I like that one, I like that one. I want to put them in order through a bespoke workflow that suits our business. But you can't really do that until you've experienced the out-the-box stuff. So I kind of revisit my clients every 3 months where I go, right, I'm going to educate you on 3 more things it can do. Then you're going to go away and play with it for 3 months, work out how that works in your world. You're going to come back to me and say, I like it, but if it did this, this, and this, it would feel better for us. And then we start playing around with bespoke studio workflows. But you need to do that entry-level place to start with. I talk about agentic comes up all the time, right? I think lawyers who haven't used AI yet should be envious of those who have, because they will more efficiently put agentic into practice. If you've used the individual building blocks and built this gut familiarity with how AI operates, you're in a much stronger position to say, right, now I want it to do 10 things in a row and come back to me to then interrogate that output. So depending on how we position the tool depends on the maturity of the organization that we're working. If you've got 10 tools and you're just looking to find another because it does something slightly different, great. It's a very straightforward conversation. But if you're already trying to work out your strategy, it might be good to start with the building blocks and then start to piece it together in a way that makes sense for your organization. So it's less around who's our target market in terms of their level of maturity and more just understanding where they're at and where they want us to meet them to help them on whatever phase of the journey they're at.
I think this opens the door to perhaps another podcast, because I also think simplification is critical. All the bespoke or customized workflows do not lead to consistency and a very streamlined organization. Each part builds its own agentic AI workflows, and you basically maintain the unstructured chaos that you had before, which your AI tools should actually clean up. So that's a different story. But let's shift towards partners and competitors, especially when it comes to larger organization. I guess you might need implementation partners, or do you do this with your own capacity? And also, you guys have APIs with everybody under the sun, I suspect, but is there someone, you said Salesforce, for example, that sticks out, which you would like to mention in terms of partnerships?
Yeah, it's a good question. So again, the amalgamation of Clio for Enterprise is 2 separate products. Vincent by Clio is username and password. It's login, right? So the only implementation work is the power of the onboarding. It's the workshopping to say, look, this tool does all these things, but what's actually important to you? I'm giving a talk in Hong Kong this week, and one of the parts of the sessions is 3 different people came to me saying they wanted to review contracts. What they left with was 3 very different looking tools under the same product. So it's less about implementation with the practice of law stuff. It's more about the power of onboarding. It's not downloading software to computers. It's not building your own instances in AWS. It's out the box, username and password, login. It's the configuration onboarding element that's important. The operate part, which is a much more software kind of product heavy implementation, we work with global partners like Moray. We've got various partnerships around the world. We do some in-house ourselves, depending on the structure of that engagement. If people have their own partners, it can work, but we would audit them and make sure that it fits in line with what we're deploying first. But more often than not, we have a couple of kind of gold partners that we say, to get this across the line in the timescales that you're looking at, our guidance plus their scale of implementation is going to get you the result that you want most powerfully. So there are go-to-market partners. If it's Vincent, we do it ourselves. We are the Vincent experts. If it's Operate, we partner with a tier 1 global implementation partner. In terms of where we sit in the market, that's a really interesting question, because there are so many vendors in the space now, and I think it's really key. And what's really interesting about this question is, I hear a lot of people answer it and they kind of want to say, we're the best at everything. But actually, I've spent over the past 3 years, I've spent so much time in pilots that ended up going nowhere because it wasn't a good product fit, that I no longer ever want to spend time in that space again, right? I want to work with people that I know I'm a great fit for, etc. For the operate element, completely bespoke practice and matter management that integrates with your whole suite of technology, there actually isn't a product on the market that does that. It's why whenever we get to the point of workshopping for a few days of someone who's in that sweet spot space of, I need to review our matter intake and management, we will win that business. Like, it's just a fantastic product. But someone has to be reviewing their matter operations at that time, which really limits us in the market, right? Because it's a big shift. So the product's great for everyone. It's more about timing when it comes to the Clio Operate product. When it comes to Vincent by Clio, it is different. There are products that are better for different things. And I talk about the general AI legal specific tools like us, Harvey, Legora. And then you've got the more specific ones like DraftWise, etc., and people focusing on very particular parts of the chain. And then you've got the publisher market. So if I break that down into like different areas, our 3 pillars start at research, and that's the publisher space. So if you are trying to understand what the law is quickly and effectively around the world, it's us versus Lexis versus Westlaw. What that will come down to is who has the content where. So we have some pretty exclusive access to Singapore law. So Singapore law firms come to us and our Q&A interface provides a better output is the feedback that we get. In the US, we had the Fastcase heritage, good content. In North America, people come to us for that. Also, if people want a global lens where they want to be able to search 10 countries in one go because they're comparing the legal landscape, we do that very seamlessly. Other competitors might have content from all around the world, but you've got to log on to their US version, then their Australian version, then this, then that. So seamless global experience in legal research, that's kind of pillar 1, us versus the legacy publishers, because all of us have that data heritage. And then you've got the more transactional kind of chipping away at those 1,000 tasks that lawyers might be doing, right? We're in a race with Harvey and Legora to automate as many parts of the legal experience as possible. Depending on our customer bases, depends on where we focus that automation. So we had 500,000 litigators using our platform before AI came along. So when I sit and speak to a global international dispute firm, when they log on to Vincent, they feel like it was built for dispute lawyers just because a big chunk of those 1,000 workflows were built on the feedback of customers doing disputes. So if you are a big global law firm looking at disputes or corporate and transactional, you're looking at us versus Harvey versus Legora. If you're looking at legal research and grounded in law, you're looking at us versus Lexis versus Westlaw. And if you're looking at pinpoint solutions for real bottlenecks in your business, yes, a big generic AI assistant tool like us, Legora or Harvey, might be able to do it or do it well, but there might be a specific tool for that area where someone's really niched down and done it better. So a couple of different ways of looking at it depending on where you are at in the market. And then what tends to happen is if there's a really cool specific pinpoint tool in an area of the market, one of those 3 more general tools will buy it or replicate it. So it's a bit of a leapfrog environment in that sense.
We all read about the headlines that big law firms have either partnered with Legora or Harvey. This is almost a daily stream of news. Would there be a place where your platform runs in parallel, or is this essentially a head-to-head competition?
Yeah, it's quite funny actually. We quite often see these announcements and they're like, oh cool, they're one of our customers, an AmLaw 100 customer that, look, if you've got offices in 20 countries around the world and we've got content for that, regardless of your Harvey bespoke workflows, you're going to need the underlying authorities to back up the work that you're doing. So yeah, we complement other subscriptions in areas. And also, like I said, we're really powerful for dispute lawyers and corporate lawyers. We see big organizations where maybe Harvey knocked on the door to talk to their transactional team, and we knocked on the door to speak to their dispute team. And we had 2 completely different conversations that led to them needing different tools for different practice areas. So again, it used to be when we were in publishing, I used to knock on the door and say, do you want law reports or weekly law reports? Yes or no. It was very easy. Now I knock on the door of a big litigation team and say, how do you operate? What do you do? How do you want to operate? What's the desired end state, etc. Sometimes we're the best fit for that, and sometimes another tool is. But yeah, you quite often see big law not hedging their bets on one provider, but going, we might as well buy 2 or even 3. I know 4 or 5 that have all 3 of us, but some people don't have the budget luxury of that. So yeah, it depends what you're trying to achieve with it, really.
Got it. So 2 more things. One on the pricing. And then maybe some general observation, as you are really all over the place and have some observations to share. So on the pricing module, can you give us some insights on the different categories of products that Clio is offering?
Yeah, it's actually relatively similar across the board, which made the acquisition a bit easier. We look at a per user, per month or per year license. The average kind of price would be around $1,800 per user per year. And that's for a Vincent license or an Operate license. And then as you scale, there's economies of scale. It starts to come down in percentage. And if you take two products together, it scales and comes down through kind of like if you buy two together, you not only get the power of integrated platforms, but a more affordable approach as well. So even from small law up to big law, starting at around about $1,800, $1,900 per year per user for each individual product, and then piecing them together in a way that makes sense commercially. So it's quite simple actually, which is really lands well in the market. We also don't make people sign up to the entirety of their firm, which is really, that's a USP and a pricing conversation. If someone says, I've got 300 litigators and they fundamentally want Vincent, but our corporate team are entrenched in another product, cool, let's work with your 300 litigation lawyers and build them something powerful. It's not all or nothing, which I know that's been a frustration for big organizations before. I think they feel a bit put on the spot of, well, because we've got 5,000 lawyers, we have to buy 5,000 licenses. It's not the case. Buy the right tool for the right people and implement it well. That's all I ever talk about.
That's a very powerful message also. In terms of implementation time, you said it doesn't take long, but obviously with large organizations, you still have to clean the kitchen a little bit and you bring in more and others. Obviously, that's part of the budget. So for every dollar that Vincent Clio charges clients, what would you say is the implementation budget that people should book on top of it, roughly?
So if it's just Vincent by Clio, not very much. Like its username and password, I could have you set up by this afternoon, Tom. Obviously, that's different on corporate and global scale, and you need to give internal advice on how to use it, etc. So there's a cost of change in that sense, but not a cost of implementation. For the Clio Operate element, it's quite a bit upfront in terms of workshopping and configuration, because you want to make this your foundation for the next 10 years as you transform as a law firm. So again, depends on the size of the deployment. We normally roll out in stages, 100 lawyers added each 6 months or something like that, depending on the internal cost. But you might want 3 or 4 stakeholders internally working on this project. So it's cost of resource internally, and then you're looking at a professional services cost for an external partner as well.
Okay, so for every dollar, you would say less than another dollar for implementation. So it's not something that you really have to significantly predict.
Maybe 50% of the first year.
50%, yes. Okay.
50% of year one subscription.
That's fair. So
as a rough figure in the air, it's harder to be, with a license, it's much easier to be clear productized costs. With implementation, it's, are you going light? Are you going heavy? How complex are your workflows? You might just be building a checklist people need to adhere to. That could be a light implementation. You might be building feedback loops, integrating with 100 different internal systems, and then you're talking about a much more expensive implementation.
Yeah, super. Last question. Again, I'm picking upon your global mindset observations. I don't want to ask about what's the biggest bottleneck of legal tech implementation. I'd rather flip the script and ask, what's the biggest catalyst for legal technology implementation? So when you tour the conferences, you see the clients, where do you think can the process of bringing in your technology accelerate, and how? What would you say to a general counsel or a legal ops head or a chief compliance officer is a must-have in order to bring your organization into a digital space?
It's a great question. I think I'll touch slightly on the question you didn't ask me of what's the block, because it leads into what's the answer, right?
Yes.
The companies I see moving the slowest are the ones that are confused, where they're in the process of evaluation that is huge amounts of tools and products and not a clear strategy on what they're actually looking to achieve. The best examples of implementation and success thereafter have been people who go, I'm going to select a few tools. I'm going to find the people I want to work with. I need to believe in their message, and then I'm going to let them in. And then we're going to have a real conversation around what we're trying to achieve. Because if you have a little conversation with everyone, you're going to get little value from everyone. But if you pick 2 or 3 areas that you want to focus on and potential tools to do it, and then really invite those vendors in, you're just going to see so much more uptake, usage, adoption across the board. And that's where we were having this conversation around kind of go-to-market in a previous conversation of conferences are difficult because there's thousands of things going on. It's analysis paralysis, but find people you want to work with, you trust, and you're aligned to their long-term vision, and then really work with them. I don't think there's a single linchpin within an organization that everyone should attack first. And if there was, you could just go out to a product-heavy market. I think every organization is different. I spoke in front of 250 litigators last week in Singapore, and I said to them, you would think coming to a litigation conference and having an hour to speak, I would be able to nail down something that was relevant to each and every one of you. But honestly, if I came into your law firm and spent a day with each of you, we would have completely different conversations. So I can't narrow it down to one particular thing. It's more about the approach for me. Find the right person, find someone you trust, bring them in and have a real conversation.
I would summarize it like active listening with a pedigree of expertise like yours that enables the listener to convert what you hear into action that benefits the person you are just about to listen. So that's, I think, where this market is super fast. There's almost no time to sit down and listen actively. There is an expectation to drive technology into organizations at lightning speed. And I think what I hear from you is, guys, we need to slow down a little bit. We need to really understand where is the pain point, where is the immediate need, where is the long-term strategy. And then we get this ship out of the harbor onto a course that is not going to lead into a storm. So I think that's a very helpful finish line for us. Really enjoyed our conversation. If you want to read more, learn more about Vincent by Clio, also come to GOLT.ai. Obviously, software is listed there. You can search for features, functionalities, competitors, compare the tool. At some point, I'm sure then you will become a gold star partner to us as well. This has already paved the ground very well. So I appreciate you sharing your vast experience, your humongous expertise. It's been a pleasure and a privilege. Dear viewers, Dan Hobson, Head of Asia Pacific for Vincent by Clio. Thank you, Dan. Wishing you all the very best in your journey. Take care.
Thank you.